Hello, everybody, and welcome to another stream from Microsoft Reactor. It's great to have you with us here today, and I can see there's people that are still joining. I can see the ticker going up, which is brilliant. And today is episode number 4. We are going to be looking at how you can connect your Go applications to Azure Cosmos DB. And all of that within a wrapper. We're going to be looking at the code behind it. We're going to be looking at what Cosmos DB is and how I'm interacting with it through an app service, well, an API server, basically. So let's jump into the slides. As always, I try and keep this pretty informal. It's a mid-afternoon stream, so this is going to be a short, quick win and hopefully show you how you can get started as well. So let me just move over my screen. If you see me looking around, as always, I've got multiple screens going on, so I'm not paying attention to the camera, just trying to play with all the different windows that I have open. So let's jump into it, and slides are open. Before we go, please take a moment to have a little read through the code of conduct that we have here. In essence, just take a moment to be kind, be respectful, ask great questions. This is a learning environment, so please just be aware of others. Also put your questions into the chat window on YouTube, or if you're watching on LinkedIn or Twitter, head over to the YouTube broadcast and then you can sort of ask questions. I'll be able to reply to you in StreamYard from there. As always, do tell me where you're joining from. It'd be great to see if we have a multi or a global stream today. It's always great when we see people joining from different countries. The reach is far and wide when you're virtual, which is absolutely brilliant. And it's amazing to see everybody in one place together. I do have a Cloud Skills Challenge to go along with the Go show. And as always, I put these Learn modules together for your learning, and everything which I do or everything which I am talking about is in essence all referenced in these Learn modules. It'd be fantastic. It's a little bit of competition. I think you can see who has got or who's completed the most modules. It's fantastic. A little bit of gamification there. So please head on over, scan this QR code or go to aka.ms/Liam. Do not worry if you missed this right now. I come back to it again at the end of the stream, and I'll also make sure all of the links are posted in the chat as well. So who am I? Well, my name's Liam Hampton, and I'm the Senior Regional Cloud Advocate working really closely with the Microsoft Reactor here in London. I'm an Azure ambassador, and I do that because I feel security is a really important sort of sticky point for developers. Now, whenever I'm at conferences, whenever I'm at meetups, I always have this conversation around security, and security is not always everybody's first point of call. Therefore, I try and make it more of my job to help promote and help people understand how you could be more secure. And through this, I am part of the Azure Ambassadorship Program. I'm also on the Dev Network Advisory Board, which basically means that I help to judge CFPs or call for papers or call for proposals, whichever way you want to say it, help maintain or run hackathons, and just have a general gist or general say in how things sort of are managed from a developer advocacy and conference perspective. I write a lot of Go code. I wouldn't say I am a perfect Go coder, but I do like to write a lot of Go code. I've done or worked on open source projects. And of course, I'm running the Go show here for you all today. And a little personal note, I like to travel the world. Who doesn't like to travel? But I make it a real big point in my life to make sure that I am visiting lots of different countries and immersing myself in lots of different cultures. I think it's an amazing thing to do. And that's just a personal note from me. So what are the learning goals? If you ever joined a stream before of mine, then you'll know that I always do learning goals. Now, the 2 learning goals that I have for today's stream is to understand what Cosmos DB is and how you can connect Cosmos DB with Go. So I'd say they're pretty straightforward goals, and hopefully you'll leave the stream at the end with some kind of understanding. Now, I do keep seeing a little ticker on my stream for my internet connection, so I apologize. If anything does happen during the stream, I will make sure I will be right back on. So let's start. What is Cosmos DB? Well, Cosmos DB is a serverless distributed database. Now, what does that mean? It means that it can scale. It means that it can sort of, whenever you have spikes in traffic, it will automatically sort of adjust to that traffic and the throughput and all the requests that are coming in. So you're not always sort of bound within limits. Distributed means it's all over the world. There's lots of different data centers of which you can plug Cosmos DB into. Now, Cosmos DB is essentially an umbrella for lots of different databases, and we'll come on to that in the next slide. It is fully managed, which means that it's easier for you to stand a service up and interact with it as well. So you don't have to manually put your scaling on. Like I said, it's automatically scaled, and the third bullet point dictates as well. And there's lots of different things or lots of different settings that you don't necessarily have to worry about when it comes to managing and setting up and bringing down your database. I've already mentioned auto scaling, but it also has built-in security. Now at Azure, we've got a whole bunch of certificates all around security and how your data is safe and secure. Now, I ran a workshop or a live stream last week, which if you haven't caught it, it was the Tech Days Learn Go on Azure. And in the database, I had a whole bunch of people who are using the services. So obviously I did the demo at the end with my co-host, and we ended up with like a whole bunch of people trying to put in SQL injection, lots of scripts, all these kind of tags into the database, and it handled it perfectly well. So straight from the get-go, there is a high level of security. And especially when you're storing data, you need to understand that, as well as governance. So there's a lot of different ways that you will govern data based on where you are in the world and how you'll store or how it's stored. Some of you may or may not be aware of that from a recent case that's been in the news, but there has been a lot around securing your data. And of course, it's got flexible pricing. So as with most services in the cloud, there is this pay-as-you-go subscription model. So you only pay for what you use. This is absolutely no different when it comes to Cosmos DB. So if we think about other serverless services, you're only paying for the compute power, very much the same with Cosmos DB. So what databases are supported with Cosmos DB? Well, there's a whole bunch, and this is them. There's quite a lot. So you have NoSQL. So if you want completely unstructured, unordered data, then you can have Azure NoSQL database. There is a MongoDB wrapper in Cosmos DB, which means that you can, well, it's basically a document database in essence, which means that you can use Mongo libraries or exactly how you'd interact with MongoDB and have it the same way that you're going to interact with Azure. And without spoiling it too much, that is pretty much what the demo is today. I'm going to show you how I do that with Go. You have PostgreSQL. So if you're an avid user of Postgres, then of course it is supported under the umbrella of Cosmos DB. You've got Apache Cassandra. I've personally never used that, or Apache Gremlin. I haven't used neither of those two, but they are supported. And of course you have table databases, which is brilliant, right? So there's a whole bunch of different databases that are supported in Cosmos DB. And it's just a really great way that you can transfer all your data and have it as a serverless service under one roof in Azure. So that's all the slides that I have today. That's a pretty quick whistle-stop tour of Cosmos DB. There are plenty of other places that we can go to learn about this. And again, I'll put the links in the chat and I'll say them out loud as well. They're also going to be on the slides later on. But I actually want to show you and get sort of straight into what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how to do it today. So like I said, I want to stick within time constraints and I want to make sure that we get the most out of today's stream. So without further ado, let me share my second screen, which has got all the code on it, and it will show you exactly what we're doing today. Please do. I can see a couple of people in on the stream. Tell me where you're joining from whilst I get this set up. So let me get this window. I will come back to that question in a minute about MySQL, and I'll show you some documentation as well. So hopefully we can see my screen now. And hopefully that looks okay on stream, just pop in the chat. If not, if you can't see it very well, just pop in the chat, tell me, and I'll make it bigger. But this is essentially episode 4 today. And it's the database connecting to Cosmos DB. This is a Go file, and it's all sort of collapsed down at the moment for a very good reason, and that's because it can get quite long. Now, that's just purely my doing, not necessarily the connection to the database itself. This is sort of a part of a different demo, which I demoed last week on Tech Days, so again in that stream. But we're just going to go into a little bit more of a sort of a pinpoint, a bit more of a silo as to what we actually did with the database. So as always, we start with a main package. So this is the top level package for Go to be running in. And then we have some imports. Now we've got the standard library, which we're using from lines 4 to 10. And then from lines 12 to 15, we are using the Go Mongo DB library. And that is just pulling in a bunch of things like BSON, the Mongo library, and options, just to allow us to talk or have sort of different parts of the package itself without bringing everything under one roof. It can get quite big. Next, we've got a person struct. Now we're going to be structuring some data. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding an item or an index to the database, or a document rather. And it's going to be of a person who has got a name and a location. Now that is going to be in the form of JSON or BISON, whichever way you want to say it. There's BSON, BISON, but then we also have the notation of JSON. A little bit confusing. BSON just stands for binary object notation, as opposed to JSON, which is the JavaScript one. And what I'm doing is I'm giving it a name and a location, and they're going to be of type string. And it's going to be referenced in the JSON as name and location lowercase. Okay, so I don't want everything to be uppercase. You don't often see that in JSON, so I'm lowercasing it. Again, you also don't need this part at the end. It's just a way of me notating of how it should look or will be looking or will be sort of appearing in the JSON. We also have an omit empty, which basically tells you that, or tells the program that it doesn't even matter if this field is empty or not. It can ignore it. It's okay if it's not there. So that's what omit empty means. Of course, we actually want a name and a location, so I'm not putting omit empty on those two. So let's collapse that struct again. Then we have a main function, and this main function is getting a connection string from the database. And I will do the flip side of this in Azure. I'll walk you through exactly what's happening in a moment. And then we're going to build a file or a Docker image, push it up to a container registry, and hopefully deploy it into an Azure App Service. So MongoDB connection string is the URI that I'm going to be connecting to. That is really imperative, and it is an environment variable. Then we've got the client options, which is basically a way of us telling it exactly what we're going to be sending through and why. Then we have got the context. Now the context is in Go quite a complicated theory to understand, but in essence, it is a way to tell the program within this little box that we're running in, within this little package, exactly what's going on. So we want the connection to the database, and we want it to be aware of that connection pool to the database. And we then don't obviously want it to close the connection. And that is what the defer cancel does here. So we don't want to close that connection yet, but we need to make sure that at some point it does. Then we're actually going to connect to the database. Okay, so we're using the context of what's currently going on in the Go routines, what's currently going on and moving around in our program, and then we're going to throw it into the connection. So we are going to do a mongo.connect. Now, this function here is part of the Mongo package that I brought in. Now, you may or may not have noticed that I haven't brought in anything to do with Azure yet. And that is because Cosmos DB allows us to put a wrapper around what we're doing. So we actually have the wrapper around MongoDB, and this is how we interact with it. All we're doing is a connection string. Okay, so it's essentially MongoDB within the house of Azure, which is really cool because it means I don't need an SDK. It means I don't need to interact with Azure in any other way. It just means I can simply plug it in by using a connection string. Going to obviously do our error checking, and then we're going to check the connection to make sure that it is alive by just doing a quick ping, making sure it's there. And of course, if it's not there, then throw something back and say, sorry, that's not working. Going to do a print line, which says, hey, Liam, we've connected to Cosmos DB, and it's the Mongo instance that you have specified. Now that can obviously, that's just a string. That's what I've written. You can name that just like, hey, everybody, we're connected, or something that of your choice. Now, this is the fun part, because I've just alluded to connecting to a database, but this is actually a HTTP server. Now, it's a HTTP server because it's a RESTful API. Now, what I mean by that is we have one handler function notating /persons or /persons. And within that, we've got a case statement. we're obviously setting some headers. So we're just allowing all origins. I had some issues with cores. You can take this out. It's not necessary at all the time, but I've just put this in to provide a bit of safety around cores and having this demo actually work for us. We have got some headers that we're setting. So get, post, and options. You may be aware of those if you've ever used, I don't know, maybe Postman, or if you're familiar with curl and the requests that you can make. Then, of course, you've got other ones, but I'm only letting these 3 through. And then I'm going to do a switch. Now, depending on which method is being sent in the request, in the header, then I will only do something if it satisfies that query. So if the case is get, then I'm going to get all the people. If it is a post, I'm going to create a person. And if it is options, then I'm just going to write the headers and just say, that's okay, that's fine. That's all we need to do. Otherwise, error. So I don't want anybody to delete anything from this database. I want it to be persistent. I don't want to run a delete command. It will not allow me to do that. So that is why I've specified this case statement. Sorry, I keep hovering over things, but VS Code likes to give me a verbose output of everything that I hover over. And of course, I do have a delete route. I have left that in there deliberately just for a bit of safety. But again, it's not important. This would necessarily be inside that case statement as a delete case. But of course, I wanted it completely separate just for my own sanity. The next part is running through the server. So we have got port. I'm going to grab the port from an environment variable. Otherwise, if there's nothing specified, we're going to use port 8080. Now, that is just there for my own local running, but we're not going to run it locally. We're going to run it completely in the cloud and hopefully show you that it works. And then, of course, we're doing a print line and a listen and serve, which is a way of us actually spinning up the server. That is quite a lot of code to run through. Now I'm going to collapse that. And if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat. So I did notice the question, does that mean MySQL is not supported? So the ones that I have run through are definitely supported. I will need to double check the documentation to ensure MySQL is not supported. I actually do believe there is a different database that we will use for that in Azure, which is potentially why it's not under the Cosmos DB umbrella. But we will have a look at that at the end of the stream for you. Thanks for the question, Brian. So create person. Let's have a look at what we're doing when we create a person. So we've already established that we have a person struct with some data. We have got a main function, which is spinning up the HTTP server ready for us to listen and hit the routes. And as we specified in that, we have obviously got our case statements, which will go off and hit create person and get all people, depending on whether it is a post or a get. So let's have a look at create person. First thing we're going to do when we make a request is we need to specify the struct. So we're going to say the variable of person is going to be of type person, and person, as we can see here, has an ID, a name, and a location. Then we're going to decode the JSON. So when we're posting it, we're going to post a body, and we want to make sure that we're decoding it in that body. And inside that body, we'll have the name and location. And down here, we set the ID because we're not going to give it a personal ID. We want to create a new one. We want to give it a random ID every single time. And using the primitive new object ID allows us to do exactly that. So in the body, we're specifying what we want it to, or what we want the data to be, and do some error checking. And then afterwards, we're going to set the ID of that request. Then we actually want to send it off to the database. So we're going to have a bit of collection information. Now we're going to get the MongoDB database name and the collection name. So anybody familiar with MongoDB will know that you have collections, and so they're basically just buckets of documents, and that's stored inside a database. You can have a database has many collections, or can have many collections for that matter. Here we just specify what they are. Then we're actually going to insert it into the database using insert one. Now that is just taking one document or one request and popping it into the database and populating some data. That's all that line does. That's all this does here. And that is based off of person. And of course, we're using the ampersand because that is pointing to the address of the actual modified person that we're using, which is up here, the variable. So we obviously have person, which is the type, the struct. We don't want to modify that very top level. We want the person to be of type person, if that makes sense. And then we want to modify our local in-scope variable, which is this one here. We want to put that into the database. Then we're going to set the header for the response type. We're going to write the header. So here we're just saying it's going to be, the content's going to be JSON because that's what we're posting. And it's going to be a char set UTF-8, which is standard. And then we're going to say the header is created. So 200, 202, whichever one that is, can't remember. 201, there we go. It's a 201 saying, yay, okay, that worked. And then we're going to just send back a response. Now, this was coming back to a front end, but we're not actually going to use a front end today. I'm just going to show you the API server working itself. I'm currently building out the front end. That's why it's currently broken right now. But that just basically gives you a response. Now, that is the creating of a person. We're not going to go through delete person because that is quite a lot of code. That's about 25, 30-ish lines. We're going to go for get all people, which albeit is probably not any shorter, but it's part of the demo today. So we're going to get all people. So what happens when we make a request to get people from the database? We want to get everybody. We want to get all the indexes. So same thing again. The first couple of lines are pretty much the same. We're using the collection to specify the database and the collection name. We are then going to grab the data. Okay, so the cursor, and that is going to be of, so we're going to go find what we have. We're throwing in the context that's running. So what we're currently with today in our program, what's in scope, and obviously the BSON. And this is going to be of everything that's coming back based on the IDs. Okay, so once we get that and it knows about it locally, we're then going to iterate through that data. Okay, so we're going off, we're collecting that data using this line here. So we're finding all the people. So we're not going to specify one person. That's what you would do probably in here. You would specify it in these brackets and you can say, go find this one person. But here we want to find everybody. And we're going to defer the closure. Now, put in the chat if you know what defer does and why it's really good or why you should be using it in terms of database connections. So if you know, if you want to hazard a guess, throw it in, let me know. Be really keen to see what you have to say. So once we have it all back, we then want to iterate. Now we need to iterate through this data. There's going to be quite a lot, or there should be quite a lot, you know, if there was a lot of data. But again, we want to say var people is of type person. Every person, every bit of data that comes back, it's going to still be in the same sort of structure as our struct person. But notice we got these square brackets. This is because it's going to be a slice of them. There's going to be a lot of them. Now, a slice is like a dynamic array. We don't usually use arrays or very often use arrays in Go. Arrays are fixed and slices are dynamic. And then we're going to basically say for every next person, we want to pull them out, decode them, just like we're doing here on line 70. So we're specifying it again. So person is of type person, so a singular this time. So people is a slice and the person is a singular. Going to decode it again using the ampersand, using our locally scoped variable that we have. And then we're just going to append it to a slice. So we're going to append people, person to people, if that makes sense. So we're going to loop over all the data that comes back, grab it, pull it out, extract the data, make sure it is in the same sort of structure. And then we're going to say, hey, here is your people array, your people slice, and you're going to append a person for every person that comes through, every bit of data, we're going to append it onto the end. That is what we're doing with that data. Then, of course, the return to the front end, or like the response, because this is a RESTful API, we're going to say the application, so the content type is of JSON, and again, char set UTF-8, and it's just going to be the JSON encoder, so we're just throwing back a bit of JSON, and it's going to be of people. Now that is just going to be JSON object full of all these different elements from the database. Hopefully that makes sense so far. So if you have any questions, pop them in the chat. Okay, so don't have anything in chat, no questions. Again, if you're watching on LinkedIn or on Twitter, then please head over to the YouTube stream on the Reactor YouTube channel and pop the questions in there. So we've actually been running for 26 minutes, which is quite a bit longer than I thought we would be running for at this point. So let's hop on over to Azure and see what is going on. So let me head into my resource group of the Tech Days demo that I ran last week. So in here, you can see a whole bunch of services. Now I appreciate that's probably quite small. So let me jump in a little bit. And we only really care about this top one here and the registry. So we've got the Tech Days demo API server, which is currently running. I mean, it doesn't do anything. We could go to the domain, it'll probably give me a 404, which it does. Now, in here, we're currently pulling from an image, which is in the container registry, which is not doing anything. Now, I can show you it's not doing anything because I have Postman open. So if we want to get any data from the database, I can do a GET request to the URL of persons. Nothing comes back, but I can show you that there is data in the database. If I head to my resource group of Tech Days demo and head into the Cosmos DB database that we've got set up already. And by the way, I will show you how to set one of these up. There is documentation that you can follow. But essentially, we have obviously the connection strings. I'm not going to show you because it actually shows it in plain text, I believe. Now you can see that I've been playing with this a little bit before, and this was from the demo last week. So March 23rd, I had a big spike of read and writes. And obviously today that I've just been testing it to make sure it's still all up and running. Now, if I go into Data Explorer, I will be able to see that I've got a database, Tech Days Demo DB, and I've got a collection, Tech Days Demo collection, and some documents inside there. Now, that document, I think there's only one, maybe. There is only one, but it proves the point there is something in the database. Now, as we saw from the code, we were connecting to it. We were sort of doing a GET request, so it wouldn't have failed on the switch statement, and it should have brought back some of the data, or at least told me something. Now, the reason that it is working is because I've just got a print line statement in the current container. It just completely blats it and doesn't actually make that request. So we're going to go and build a new container. We're going to push it to the registry, and we're going to deploy it into the app service. So again, let's go to the registry and show you what we have currently in here. So we've got some repositories in the Azure Container Registry. And as you can see, Tech Days Demo Container. This is the one that's currently working or currently in the app service, which is deployed to. And we're not worried about that one. We're going to build a new one. So let me just make sure that the app service, let's just go into the app service. I'll show you what's currently being pulled from the deployment center. So I appreciate this is quite a quick whiz through, but the deployment center is where it specifies in the app service where it's pulling the application code from. Now, I've got this set up as a container because I'm writing Go. Now, app service doesn't support Go as a build pack or like a runtime stack straight out the box. So a really good way to do it, and actually a better way and more flexible way, at least for me, I find, is to use containers. So we're pulling a single container, which you can use, I think, Docker Compose, but it's in preview. I'm not sure, I've never used that. Registry source, I'm saying, is the container registry, which is, of course, what we have just seen. My subscription, my credentials, I've got admin credentials allowing me to update and do what I need as an admin of this. I'm pulling from the registry, which I just showed you, and the image, Tech Days container, and tag v1. Now, I've also got continuous deployment turned on because this is tied into a GitHub pipeline elsewhere. We're just going to skip all of that and just go straight to container registry and hopefully see it working. So let's go to our code. Now, what do we need to do? We need to make sure that we're in the same directory as this file here, this database-connect.go. And in this registry, in this directory, we also have a Docker file. Now, this Docker file is going to do some cool stuff. It's going to run the Golang image as a build image. It's going to set the Go path as /go, the working directory. It's going to copy everything over from the current directory that we're in, which is just database connect.go. Then going to do a go mod init and mod download. So basically, we're just packaging up all of this code that we have in this one file to actually happen, right? Going to set some build flags. We're going to change the permissions on it and just call the binary an API server. And then the really cool bit, which I like doing with all of my containers, is running it multi-stage. And I'm going to ignore everything that I've just done, all the building, because I've built my binary. My binary's got everything encapsulated within it. And then I'm going to copy that across to a new image, but a really small image. And I'm just using Alpine 3.17. And then I'm just going to copy over the API server binary, expose a port, and give it an entry point to run. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because with a multi-stage image, you'll be looking at maybe 15 megabytes. I'll be able to show you in a minute. But if you weren't using a multi-stage image, you'd be looking maybe about 400 to 350 megabytes for just that one image. That is technically expensive. That is costly for money as well. And of course, you have latency and a high risk of failure if you have poor connections. So what are we going to do? We're going to run a couple of commands. We're just going to make sure that we are logged into Azure, which I believe that I am. That's probably going to take me into a browser, and it's going to say, hey, go log in. So I'll make sure that I log in with whatever I need. So I'm using the Azure CLI. Let's go back to the code. Yep, I'm in. Wonderful. Next thing I want to do is Azure ACR login and give it a name. And the name is going to be of the registry, because I'm going to be building and pushing an image to the registry. So let's log in to, I think it's called Tech Days Demo Registry. We'll find out because it will fail otherwise. Cool, so login has succeeded. After that, we then want to build a Docker image. So I've actually got the command already out for me because it's quite a long one. But essentially, I'm going to be doing a Docker build, giving it a platform of Linux and AMD 64. That is because of the box that I'm running the app service on is a Linux box. Of course, it's just hidden away from what we see. I'm going to give it a tag. I'm going to call it the Go Show Demo V1. And the little period at the end just means build any and every Docker file that we have inside the current directory. So in fact, let me just make sure that I'm in the right directory. Yep, so I am in there. Don't know what I just done there. Close that one. Let's build the Docker file. This might take, that didn't take any time at all because it's cached. But if I do Docker images and have a little look, we can see probably right at the top, the Go Show demo is here, and it is 17.1 megabytes. That's really small, and that's really good. Now let's clear that one, and let's tag it. So the reason I'm tagging it is because I need to push this image to my container registry. So I need to tell it basically where to go. So I'm going to do that by saying docker tag.io. So yeah, docker tag docker.io, the Go Show demo v1, which is the current name of the image. And I'm going to retag it to Tech Days demo registry. Just ignore that Tech Days part. Azure CR, so Azure Container Registry.io. So it's a new registry, and let's depict at that point / the Go Show demo v1. Now that would have tagged it. It hasn't told me anything, but if I do Docker images again, I can see on my local machine at the very top, we have got this new tag. So you can see the image ID is the same. It's all the same. It's just a retag of what we just have. Now what we need to do is go and push that to the registry. We've logged into Azure. We've logged into the registry. We've built the image. Now I need to go and push it to the registry. I can do that by doing a Docker push Tech Days demo registry.azure cr.io / the Go Show demo v1. Now, I didn't create this registry already. I haven't created a new repository, in this registry, but this will do that. Hopefully. So now let's go and have a look and see what's going on. So it says that it has pushed. Let's go and check out the registry, the Tech Days registry in here. And let's go and have a look at repositories. So as we can see, we've got the Go Show repository now. Earlier we didn't. Now, if we have a look in there, we've got V1, and of course, you can see the different layers of what's going on in this image. And we can see that we've built it for Linux, AMD 64, and all the other cool stuff that you need, digest, hashing, all that kind of stuff to make sure that this image is A-OK. So now we've built that, let's go and change our app service. So we're going to go head in, we're going to look at the deployment center. And in here, we can say, you know what, we don't want to pull from this image. We don't want this image anymore. We want to pull the Go Show demo. So we've got a new container, a new image in the container registry. I'm going to select it on here. Everything else is sorted. We actually have, I'll show you the environment variables as well in a moment, because that is really important. So that's all I need to do. I could go off and make a new app service. I'm just not going to, because this all ties in nicely with what we currently have. And just click save. That will save the configuration, and I can go check out the logs in a moment. But I do want to show you the configuration of the environment variables. I mentioned the Mongo database connection string. We mentioned the database and the collection, and these are all here inside this app service. So this is where it's pulling it from. And of course, I'm running on a different port. So I just want, I can show you I'm running on port 8080. So in the code, remember I did that port check. This will pull it from here as well. So let's go and have a look at the logs and see what's actually going on. We can scroll down, have a look at the log stream. Lots and lots going on. As we can see here, 11:36. So if we look at the time, 12:37. This is in UTC. So of course I'm on BST now. I'm in the UK. My clock went forward. So this is the correct time. We can see that it is up and running. And we can say it's ready for requests. It's ready to serve requests. So let's go and have a look. So what I want to do is open Postman and just go and check this out. We know that we've got an item in the database. We know that it is there. I'm just going to wait for this to load. The portal being a bit slow. My Wi-Fi is probably not the best. So if I click on that link again, it will probably say 404 page not found. And can anybody tell me why? I've got I'm going to come back to two things shortly. I'm going to come back to the defer statement that I asked about. I'm going to ask you why I think it's a 404. What we can do is go to Postman. Now we've got the URL and the root. This is just going to do a GET request. So let's send the GET request and see if we get some data back. And we do. We do get some data. Now, that's it. That's cool. That's connected to Cosmos DB. Now we can go and post. We can go and send some data, and we can say Liam Hampton, say, hey, I'm from the UK, and we can go and send this off. So we can go and send that, and it'll give me the ID of that item that I just created. So remember, I didn't specify an ID. I've said name and location only. Now I can go and look in the database. And over here, you should also see the data that we have just passed through. So let's go and have a look at the Data Explorer. In Data Explorer, again, we've got our database, our collection, and the documents. So in here, we can see that we've now got two, and I'm guessing it's the top one will be, nope, the bottom one, there we go, is Liam Hampton. So how cool is that? So we've connected to Cosmos DB using Go without any specific Azure imports or libraries or SDKs. We've just done it purely using the MongoDB library that we have and the imports. And we've just been able to specify the connection string, database, collection, and send some data out. Now, of course, you can do the full CRUD functionality, create, read, update, and delete. Just wanted to show you today how you can create and get them all, get all your items. So now if we go and get that, because we've got two items in the database, we can just go back to our GET request, and we should see a slice of, there's our slice of two objects that we have, ID, name, location of Liam and Joe. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. That was a quick whistle-stop tour. It's been 40 minutes, a little bit over the 30 minutes, but we're still under 45, which is cool. So let me just bring up the slides one final time. Let me stop sharing this screen. Let me start sharing my other screen because we like to change screens quite a lot here. We have this one up. So if you enjoyed it, we got the Cloud Skills Challenge, which again, just a whole bunch of modules, learn modules on Microsoft Learn. It'd be really cool if you could take a look, have a go, have a play, and see what you think. I'm always welcome to feedback. So of course, if you want to give me any feedback, my handle is just there. So Liam C. Hampton on Twitter, as well as TikTok and LinkedIn, of course, if you want that one. And I'll put some links in the chat as well, actually. So we've got the aka.ms/, Liam, which is the Cloud Skills Challenge. We have got the Go Show. So what we have today is going to be there. So that's a series page. So keep your eye open for that one. If you want the material for all of this, this is all on GitHub. So go ahead, star the repository and have some fun with it. Take it away, play with it, do what you like. The Go Show material is aka.ms/the Go Show GH. So standing for GitHub. And of course, if you want to get started with Cosmos DB yourself, then have a little look at this link. So aka.ms/start with Cosmos DB. And if you want to play with Go and you want to have some quick starts in Go, then you've got another link that you can go to. You go to aka.ms/Cosmos Go Quick Starts. Now, there's some fantastic material all within all of that there. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have a play. Have at it. Have at it yourself. So what's coming up next? We have got a couple of events that are happening. So on April the 4th, if you are a student, come along to the Microsoft Reactor in London, which is at 70 Wilson Street, and we have a meetup for you. There'll be some really cool talks around career progression and how you can get involved with the Microsoft Student Ambassadorship Program and some of the benefits that that can provide for you. It's also going to be running hybrid, so we will be online. So of course, if you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc., I will also be running the stream there as well. But if you're in London, if you're in person, come along. And of course, if you want to join that, that's aka.ms/student meetup reactor LDN. So that's on the screen now. I will post that. I haven't actually got it on my list of links. I forgot to put it there. On April the 5th at 12 p.m., we've got the not Microsoft Tech Days. We have got the Startup Storytime series. That's my mistake. Let me go and change that now. That is Startup Storytime. And that is dedicated to giving startups a platform of which they can come and speak to the community and tell us all about their journey, what they're doing, what they've been playing in, the services, the technology that they have, and a little bit of the challenges that they face personally. So it's going to be a 30-minute stream of me just asking founders and co-founders and CTOs all about their business, what they're doing, and why. On April the 12th, we have got the next Go Show, episode number 5. So if you have any ideas of what you want to see, then now is the time to throw them in the chat. Tell me what you want to see, because this series is all about me helping you. And I want you to help me by giving me some ideas of what to help to show you, if that makes sense. So come along and let me know what you think. Of course, you can feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or Twitter as well. If you want to be a part of this, you want to be a guest on the show and show off what you've been working with, then I'm open to that too. Just let me know. Just give it an ask. And of course, if you missed out on the Tech Days Learn Go on Azure stream, it was a 3-hour stream, which I streamed from the Microsoft Studios with my wonderful co-host, Adelina. And we talked all about the fundamentals of Go and different services that you've written in Go and that you can write Go for on Azure. And if you go to aka.ms/techdaysgo, now, of course, I will post that in the chat as well. That is on the main Microsoft channel. So Microsoft Developer YouTube. Go and have a little look at that if you fancy it. And of course, that brings us to the end of today's stream. So if you want to connect, scan the QR code. If you want to have a go at the Cloud Skills Challenge and see what everybody's up to and see if you can beat them, then please do scan that QR code on the right or go to aka.ms/Liam. I hope you enjoyed the stream today. It was really fun. I really enjoy playing with these sort of services and seeing it happen and work in front of your eyes. So that, I don't think we have any questions in the chat, but would like to say a massive thank you to everybody for joining today. I've seen the number go up, which is brilliant. And I will see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.